Hey Ankur, welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to speak to you again, James.
Yeah, good stuff. So you've had quite a journey from, Amazon to founding multiple ventures. Could you walk us through your path to creating zero to one, and what sparked the idea?
Uh, you, you, I mean, it's kind of overstating multiple ventures. My first venture, Market, didn't really go the way we wanted it to, but nonetheless, I'd say that it was one of the most expensive educations that I've ever received. But if I hadn't done Market, zero to one wouldn't have been possible. And because, when you're working with big companies, my background was Amex and then Amazon. You're in a pretty structured environment, and you have everything you need to innovate, um, or at least whatever you need to get things done. Uh, that doesn't give you the context of really building something from scratch because you're not building anything from scratch. You are just adding on, incrementally making things. When you come to a startup, it's completely different. You have a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and you have to start from there. So any progress you make, whether you succeed, whether you become a $1 billion unicorn or you don't, uh, the learning is immense. So zero to one, coming back to market was a great idea, but it didn't do well. And zero to one was okay. What do you do next so that you don't have to go back to doing that incremental work? In a big company and stay relevant. So that was why zero to one came into being, and it was combining the the work that you had done in the Amazons of the world and the work that you had done building your own startup and saying, okay, how do I make this work for companies that are trying to scale? And putting those two things together, that was the idea of zero to one.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and you are following that philosophy. I mean, Peter Thiel's zero to one. It's kind of the philosophy that you mentioned there with the incremental improvements, and then really just starting something that's just unique and different in the market. What are the biggest lessons? So you said it's a very an expensive education. What are the biggest lessons and
I
takeaways?
think I think the two biggest lessons are one, find the right people and the right find the team, and I talk about it in one of my LinkedIn posts. Find the pigs that work with you and not the chickens. And the difference is, people who are really committed versus people who are involved, and the that makes the difference. It takes a village to raise a startup, but your core team of 2 to 3 people, they have to be really committed to this, and not just contributing on the sides. That was the
Mm,
biggest learning, and I didn't have that in my first venture. The second is, you know, funding is important, but plan how you want to develop your product based on the funding that you have, with not in the based on the funding that you may receive. I think that's it's a we when you get money in increments of, like, if you're raising $1 million, you get 100,000 here, a couple of 100,000 there. You can't plan what you want to build, and you're setting yourself up for failure. So having that runway to be able to, and this is more applicable to pre-seed companies who are doing, friends and family. I'm getting 20,000 from here, 15,000 somebody else is giving me. Get that money in first before you start building stuff, if you start burning it. Because if you are burning it and you're in anticipation of getting more, that's going to mess up your entire way of doing things. So these are the two
Mm,
learnings I had, but I think the biggest one is the team. You've got to have the pigs and not the chickens.
mm. Yeah, and you mentioned, I think you mentioned the word obsessed in our previous conversation. It's the obsession around it's that founder mindset and obsession of just thinking about the company, thinking about growth, doing
Yeah,
whatever it takes.
it's really interesting. It's like it's what is the right motivation for you to do startup, right? Um, it's actually counterintuitive, but it's not for making a lot of money. That's like a byproduct. So the obsession is, if you're obsessed about making a lot of money, you're going to turn this around and become a billionaire over it. I mean, or have hundreds of millions of dollars in a sale. I think that's not the right motivation. The motivation in the obsession is to build something, to really create something from scratch, right, and see it grow. Um, and if you don't have that right mindset, I think at some level you try to make it work rather than want it to work in a way that it should work.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so zero to ones, it's achieved pretty impressive growth over the last couple of years. What's been the most critical decisions you made, the first couple of years to enable that expansion, that growth right now?
Oh, we are still experimenting and figuring out what and how we can differentiate and add value. But from the onset, we had a few things that we wanted to put into a structured way of how we work with startups and small businesses. One is we wanted it to be product led, whether it's a data engagement or it's an engineering engagement or it's an analytics engagement. It was a product first strategy. So you're leading with product. You're leading with someone who has accountability and ownership. What we didn't want to be is another staff augmentation for a company where we are throwing in engineers, throwing in analysts, or throwing in product managers, and they're just lost in the shuffle. We wanted to, and we still do, we want to own the problem statement. And if we don't own the problem statement, we cannot partner with you or with a company to actually make things happen in the way they would like to. So, I tell what we say is that we are not an outsourced. When you work with us, you're not outsourcing work. You are insourcing a team. It's an embedded team model, and that's not changed for the past 2 years. What has changed is and evolved is how we structure different products for different solutions. And that has been an evolution based on customer feedback, working with clients, understanding whether you need what level of support you need. And that has evolved. But the underlying principle of being product led, of being embedded and having that ownership, which is the most important thing for us, which is cannot be compromised, that has not changed.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, to talk about your product, you've created what you call a full stack analyst program. Um, And what gap in the market did you identify that large companies weren't, or were missing?
Yeah. So, if you go out and you look for any analytics or data support, right? So you have a few options, or you're doubling down on SaaS products that are somehow you think that they're going to give you all the information, um, or you are hiring maybe one data analyst who's just working on things in complete isolation. What we saw was that pre-Series A companies and small businesses, and rightly so for some reason, that they're investing more on the business side and less on the insights and data side. And that's because data teams can become big and it's not a direct ROI because you're focusing on business, you're focusing on the product, and you're compromising on the insight. That was the foundation of the full stack model. You look at all the big Deloittes and the EXLs and the ThoughtWorks, all these companies, they're working with big enterprises, and big enterprises have all the assets. When it comes to startups, small businesses, say under $10 million, you don't have these assets, and these companies, the big consulting companies, never engage with the smaller company. So what we wanted to do was create a transparent, productized version of analytics, and say, okay, we want to scale and grow with you, and it kind of goes back into our minimum scale velocity concept, which we can talk about. But we want to grow with you based on what your need is. So if you have a foundational need of, like, say, just attaching 3 or 4 data sources and just giving you the basic key metrics that you need to drive your business, that's like under $3,000. That's $29.99 and you get everything. But if you want to be AI ready, and if you want to be, get more insights, more analytics, more predictive analytics, that's your scale, which is on the other side of the spectrum at under $10,000. So you can get all of that without hiring a full data team. And we make that happen because we will figure out how to get you that information.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to circle back to when you mentioned, you're taking client feedback and iterating, and it's the solutions that you provide are different from what you thought, your initial offerings. What surprised you most about, changes that businesses actually need versus what you originally might have thought that they wanted?
That's a great question. I think what surprised us was when we start the resonance that we got with the ownership portion, and I think that was a really a welcome change from how that breaks the barrier of why you don't want to go to a third party, right? It's not a transactional relationship. It's a relationship that builds over time, and creates that increment, that value that you're looking for, and not just what I need somebody to do this for me, and let's get a contractor or let's get an outsourced organization. I think the what surprised me was that how people really love the idea of working with companies that actually can think the way they are thinking. So putting you're thinking and breathing the same thing as these companies are, and it's really important in small businesses and startups, because that obsession. They want a team, and this goes back to my first question. Okay, you need a really good team to build something, whether it's a team that is outside of your company or within, but you need that team that has that ownership, right? So that's what was pleasantly surprising to me.
Yeah. So you mentioned minimum scale velocity, that you've said almost no one uses, and you've developed this as a framework. Could you explain that concept and how businesses should apply it?
There's the best way of putting the minimum scale velocity in context, and I actually just sent out I just wrote a blog on that. Is the minimum amount of effort required to attain the scale that you want to, right? So the difference is that the mindset of, like, let's put the burn so that we need to get to a place as quickly as possible, versus sequencing it to figure out what you need to do first, second, third, to build out that and really assess what is that escape velocity that you're looking to achieve to get into orbit, because we're, we're and it kind of goes back to the Amazon philosophy that you're not really competing with competitors. You're just doing the best thing that you are for your customers, right? And that's like you're building things keeping that framework in mind. And minimum scale velocity helps you to attain that. It's a much more structured, sequenced burn. So you're not putting yourself in a place where you need you need a car to go from one place to another, and you're building a rocket ship.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so you mentioned an one Amazon philosophy there. What principles, lessons working with Amazon have you carried forward? Which ones have you, or also which ones have you deliberately left behind?
Oh, I think one of the principles that we've carried forward and we've evolved it. I wouldn't say you can't take a company that's like with billions and billions of dollars of revenue, um, a million people, and take that into the context. So we have to tweak it a little. But I think one of the concepts that we've taken into the 0 to 1 model is this concept of a single-threaded leader, and applied it to the product management of how we work with clients. Um, it's an engagement model that brings a product manager, whether you're doing a whether you're doing a data exercise or a product development exercise, but you have a single threaded leader who's actually not only working with the technology teams of the company, but also with the business side and connecting the dots. That's one. The second thing we've evolved is, the concept of this whole two pizza team into a pod model. We took that model and adopted it to the needs of startups. So a pod model is, okay, you need 3 engineers, you need a portion of a data scientist, a designer, an analyst. You put them in a pod, and that pod is now dedicated to you, to the company, and it works with your company. To the extent that if you want at some point in time in the future to take that pod and integrate it in your company, you can do that as well. So the mindset is not, oh, you know what, like this is not a factory floor where we are just churning things out. It is a very, it's deliberate, it's dedicated, and it's based on the needs of one particular company. That's And if you look at the Amazon ecosystem back in the day, at least when I was there, it was a think of it as a large city with small businesses all over. Like all that, Kindle was a small business, consumables was a small business. They worked like that, and it worked because it was a decentralized, completely decentralized model, and that's what we are following. We need to have that decentralized model. I don't know what we've not taken. I guess we've never what we didn't like, we didn't even think about it, right? So we didn't deliberately leave anything that weren't doing, but we just didn't adopt it. So everything else, we basically just took it out.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think of. Amazon's such a big company, and decentralized to the different sections, subsections. Yeah, it's fascinating to think of it like that. When you said dedicated to one particular company, are you talking about the customer, or are you talking about your company?
Oh no, the customer, the client.
The customer, yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and we've done that. We've done that for clients who don't want to have before they. It gives you an idea of what kind of team you want to set up before going and burning cash and setting up that entire team. Because if you look at it, the cost of capital to today to set up an internal team is immense when you take into account uh, the salaries, the benefits, and the equity. You combine all of that together, that's a huge cost of capital. And you don't know in the beginning what kind of structure you will need, especially if you're Series C, Series A, even Series B. So this helps you to really get your test out your different strategies, build it out, and then replicate it internally when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So thinking about, you develop the pod for a particular company. What does the customer onboarding, what does it kind of look like high level? Because you're delivering such a complex product. What does it look like, and how long does it take to get to value?
So we have what we call as a MVP approach, right, for to value. And this is so if you think about the full stack model, right, um, within the first 3 to 6 weeks, you start getting insights, and it's
Mm,
not and sometimes even earlier. I'll give you an example. We have a client right now. They are It's an immensely interesting business. They're actually they've just launched a sports league, and they have these events all scheduled, and we have 2 weeks to come up with all the metrics, which means how are you getting who's watching on YouTube, who's watching on TikTok, who's watching on Instagram, who's watching live stream on Peacock, on NBC, on CW, all of that before April 4th, we need to put it together. And we've just been on it for the last 1 week. So driving that value is really, really important to us. So that mindset is okay, you know what? I don't care whether I give it to you on a piece of paper, on Google Sheets, or on a Word document, but I'll give you the insights that drive your business. So that's another concept, that's another extension of the whole minimum scale velocity concept. You don't need a pretty dashboard, you need information to drive things, right? Um,
mm,
so and if you take that into the pod model doesn't start from engineering, it starts from the business. It starts from what is it that you're trying to achieve? What is your operating model? Do you have one? Do you have an operating plan? Do you have a go to market? Give us all of that, and then we will figure out how the tech piece, the data piece, can help you drive that, not the other way around. A lot of
mm,
times when you start working with and I did that, and I kind of made a lot of mistakes, is that you're putting the cart before the horse, and you're looking at the technology and not looking at the business or the model, because the technology is just an enabler. uh, it's a medium, but it's the business that you need to figure out what the go to market is. So that's why a PM, a single threaded leader, looks at everything and then starts to start building out the tech roadmap, the product roadmap, the design, all of that, in conjunction with the startup team. So that's our process. That's our intake process. And yeah, it's the first week just goes in that.
mm. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. And yeah, and you are just gathering all that context for what is important to the business and the outcomes. Yeah, and you're developing specialized AI agents focused on specific functions like retention, churn analysis. Are you developing those in isolation, or are you developing full custom solutions? Like how does that work?
So this is a really interesting thing that we are doing. We at the onset, we what we wanted to do was build out products that can be standalone as well as can aid our consulting with very specific tools and proprietary uh, AI technology. The way we think about this is that if you are building agents today, you are most likely doing the testing on dummy data, then going to the investors, trying to get pre-seed money, getting that in, developing it further, trying to it's like just the trying to show traction. And most of these AI agents, what we found was like all very horizontal, like they're like on the periphery right now. We thought about this in terms of, okay, we have a consulting business which is generating cash, and that cash can be, some of it could be invested back into product development. So, I mean, I don't know if I said this, but 0 to 1, we have taken no outside investment at all. It has been fully funded, fully funded by its own business from day one. Our investment, we did not invest any money in it. Whatever we made, we pre-invested. And the AI model, the AI agent model is the product side, the product development side of 0 to 1 as a standalone company. And we've got this was this is an idea that my co-founders Bruno and Rahul came up with, and then we have our really talented CTO Harish, who's really good at this, and the three of them have been really focusing on this. And the idea is to really build vertical agents that go deep into problem solving for on the data side. So whether it's your marketing, it's your retention, it's acquisition, so you're developing very specific agents that do these things for you. And the beauty of that is that we can then put that into context and test it with our clients and show the proof is in the pudding, because we can actually say, okay, you know what, this agent did X, Y, and Z, and it increased your retention by X, or increased your acquisition by X, and this is the proof. So we are not just testing it on dummy data and trying to get a proof of concept. We are doing it because we are doing it in conjunction, in partnership with our clients, and testing it on real data and delivering value at the same time. And so that's the idea of agents. And it's a fascinating thing where you are using some of that same innovation of your own team and building out products that can create a virtuous cycle for your consulting business, but also can be a standalone product offering in itself.
Yeah, interesting. And and I can imagine once a company sees one thing working and you've got, other solutions for other problems, you could expand out that way and have a hierarchy of agents working in each of the customers.
Yeah, I think this is why we are able to build these products and help is, and I think about it a lot, is, we were never, our core training, our core development as people, as operators, was not in consulting. It was in the industry. And then we came into consulting. It's the other way around. Like most people go from consulting into the industry. We are doing it the other way around. And what that's done is that we understand the pain points. So we are looking at it not from a consultative perspective, but we're looking at it, okay, what if I was the analyst who's working with this company, right? What would I be doing? And then building out those products in that context. It's a really different way of looking at things, because you go really deep. You're not on the periphery.
Yeah. So over the last, 2-3 years, many founders, many companies have been rushing into integrate AI into their companies, into their products, asking that question, what are the common mistakes that you're seeing or you've seen companies make with their own AI implementations?
I think what I'm seeing is that there is a lot of talk about AI because everyone wants to rush into it, but nobody is really asking the question: is our stack ready for it? Are we ready for? Is our data stack ready to be able to connect to AI to give the right insights? Um, if you're connecting something to an LLM and you don't have the right data sets, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? It's going to give you all these hallucinations and it's going to give you all this wrong data. So what I think what is the understanding, the caution out here is that look at your data, understand what your data can bring, and AI is really powerful. It is super powerful. Generative AI is super powerful. The agents are really powerful, but they're only powerful if you can contextualize them to your business.
Mm.
So having to do that and not being able to do that can then create a bad investment, and you're in that vicious loop versus a virtuous cycle. So I think that's one thing that most small businesses, and I think it goes more for non-tech founders, because they're looking at efficiencies, they're looking to grow, they're looking to scale, but they don't really fit in and connect. And if they're not connecting the dots, that can be a pitfall.
Mm. And what do you, or how do you see the AI landscape evolving over the next few years? Based on your data analytics experience and background.
Um, I think that we are moving, we're moving to what I call the thinking economy. I think that, and this is, I wrote a post on LinkedIn a few days back about, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. And I feel like we are in a world where everything is possible. All you have to do is just imagine, and AI can do that for you. And this is just the beginning. So the things that we valued, the speed at which you write, the speed at which you can execute, all of that is gone out the window, because that's going to be table stakes. That's going to be, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I
That's okay.
forgot. I
That's okay.
I actually did put a do not disturb. Yeah, so that's all table stakes, right? Um, Execution is not going to be a problem. Putting it into context is going to be key. So I think where it takes us is like, how do you think? How do you bring out the best expression that can be translated into something tangible? So I think it's going to be about interacting with AI and giving it context. It's going to be about how you can drive it to the right uh, to where you want it to. It's not going to do things on its own. So yeah, so the table stakes are changing, and the way people define success and brilliance is going to change.
Mm.
It's going to be more about your thought process, less about whether you can code a million lines in 5 days or not.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's yeah. So the execution, yeah, it is table stakes, but it's the more the strategy, the planning, how you think around problems, how you define problems and solutions, the creative side. Um, it's all that's evolving as a skill set, and the best people to think through problems, understand solutions,
Yeah, it's a collaboration, right? It's a, how do you collaborate with AI, and do you have the right do you have the right way of collaborating? Do you have the right skill set in collaborating with AI? If you go on ChatGPT and you ask ChatGPT to write something for you, it'll give you all it'll give you like things that don't make sense. But then you have to
Mm,
really work on getting it to create something that's in your head. So you're
mm,
transforming what's in your head into a piece of paper, but that requires a skill, that requires a thought process. And I
mm,
think if you don't have that thought process, so that's why I think it's more about thinking. It's the people who are going to be successful are people who can think in the right direction. So that's why I call
mm.
it a thinking economy. And I love the Harry Potter analogies because magic is all over everywhere. It depends on whether you're a squib or a Dumbledore.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm the same. I love Harry Potter. I read the books growing up as a kid, and yeah, they always. I definitely got have that magician energy. And yeah, I love magic. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why I went into marketing. You know, my background is marketing because it's human psychology,
Oh,
which is just it's magic, right?
it is. It is magic. Yes, it is. It's the power of suggestion, right?
Mm. How do you see small businesses specifically being affected? You know, what do you predict that landscape looking like for small businesses?
With the AI coming in,
With the evolution of AI.
I mean, I think that there is a huge opportunity, but also a big risk. So I'll talk about the opportunity. The opportunity with AI coming in is that, yeah, you're going to need lesser people to do, and be able to do more, right? So definitely there's economies of scale there, and there's efficiencies there. The other problem that I feel is on the flip side is that how do you deal with having so many people not being required to do that job, right? And that's, I think,
Mm,
more of a macro problem than a small business problem. Is like, okay,
mm,
how does that change the entire landscape of how you tax people, or do you need an universal income? I mean, if I'll give you, like, let's say, take a hypothetical example. If you have these big tech giants saying that, okay, you know what, I don't need a mid-level engineer, or I don't need you can have ChatGPT selling a $20,000 a month PhD style coder, for example. What does that do to the entire economy, right? And with robotics coming in, you're also now getting into areas which requires motor skills, which was at one point not possible because that was not, it hadn't been solved for. That's being solved for as well. So if you take that whole big picture, it's scary for a lot of people, um, and it might require a much bigger conversation than just for small businesses. Uh,
mm,
it might require a little bit more thinking to do, which
mm,
is way beyond my pay grade, but somebody has
mm.
to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know, you're of the mindset. I mean, coming back to Harry Potter, it's the art of the possible. You know, there's magic, and AI is pretty. As an entrepreneur, you know, with that mindset, it's pretty magic. You're almost thinking, how can I 100x what I'm able to do, rather than oh my, like AI is coming for my job. It's a very different mindset. So yeah,
Yeah, it works for the entrepreneurs, but it doesn't work for everybody.
mm, yeah,
It's coming for somebody's job, maybe not the
yeah,
entrepreneur's job. So
yeah.
yeah. So I think that's the downside of it. It's a scary downside. I can
Mm,
tell you that some, the agents that we are building, I mean, they have the potential of actually at potential to grow to a point where entire marketing teams work can be done by agents.
Mm,
Imagine that's a scary thought, right? Where
mm,
you need 10 people to do retention, churn, you need engagement, all of these things. And you have five agents doing all of that, reporting into, one person. Suddenly you have direct reports who are not, human beings, but they are these AI agents.
mm,
You're just one CMO or one VP of marketing who has five direct reports who are working 24 hours for you.
mm.
You wake up in the
Yeah.
morning, you know, if there is a if there's a spike, or if there is something that needs to be reported, like if it's a crisis, you get a call on the phone, and it's not the employee, it's not your direct report, it's the agent telling you that something is wrong. We need to speak to you need to speak to someone.
Mm,
That's the idea. That's how powerful this is. So
mm,
while it's really, I mean, it's really fun to think about it. It's very fun to develop and build it, but it is definitely scary.
mm. Yeah. No, there are definitely two sides, and yeah, there are the positives, the negatives, and it's a very big discussion because this it isn't just doesn't just affect how we work and operate; it affects whole societies, and it is a macro
Yeah,
discussion that's it's going to be very interesting how it plays out, over the next
yeah.
decade or so.
And we are really small. Like, we have a small shop. We are building all this, and we are seeing that. Imagine you're talking about, like, the big tech. People are developing things that are much that are at scale, right?
Mm,
So if we are seeing it at like this level, like
mm,
at this minuscule level, then it's just a grain of sand,
mm.
in a wide universe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned founder mental health in our last conversation. You know how being a founder can be quite a lonely place, and how mental health is an important discussion. What strategies, or how do you kind of deal with help you? What helps you manage the pressures of being a founder, being an entrepreneur?
So the first time around, it was really difficult. It was hard. It put me in a depressive state clinically, and it was lonely. One of the reasons is when you come out of, uh, especially when you're starting something in your 40s, right? You have a fairly steady income. You've been working for a few years, for many years, and your the way you gauge your self-esteem is linked to where you've worked. Oh, I worked at Amex, I work at Amazon, right? So you have this entire brand support of people
Mm,
you're working with, and people who your companies that you're working with, that gives you this sense of belonging and a sense of success. When you take that and you come into the startup world, and this is you in the beginning, it's really like, people are, you write a LinkedIn post, you do this, and people are congratulating you, way to go, and everything else. But when the dust settles down, it's really lonely, and you're just on your own. And what you realize is that, oh, you're you're just building stuff which nobody knows, nobody cares right now, because it's just you and maybe a couple of other people, and you're just in that route, and you don't have anyone to talk to, you don't have anyone to that really builds up, crushes your self-esteem. And now add, when you're looking to go and raise money, and you get rejection after rejection, right? It's it's it it, it puts a pile of pressure on you. And
mm,
what that does is, it at some level, it kind of it shakes you up, right? Now, we only think about, we only talk about, like, the big successes, right? But we know what the startup success rate is. It's really minuscule, right?
Mm.
So for every one startup success, you have 100 that did not succeed. So imagine those founders who are in that 100, what they are going through.
Mm.
So mental health becomes a really important thing. The second time around, how I managed it is two things. One, I think I think you need to have a team, a very close team that is pulling each other up when somebody's down, right? The second thing is that I think the pressure of making it really big, uh, there's a mindset change for me is like, okay, you know what, a 20, a 5, a 10, a $20 million business is a good business. I don't have to have $1 billion business, right? If I get there, I get there, but I'm trying to build a sustainable business, not a unicorn. I think that
Mm.
mindset keeps eases the pressure off you. The third thing I think is that mental health, and I find meditation really important. Um, Meditation especially for founders, for high stress jobs, it's not a 5 minute exercise a day. I think
Mm.
it's like saying you're going to the gym for 5 minutes and you're going to you know compete in a triathlon. That doesn't work, or an Ironman competition. So you have to train as you train your body for like big events. Startup is a big event, so you need to train your mind. So you need to do at least 45 minutes to an hour every day of just introspection, mindfulness. I think that really helps.
Mm.
It helps you connect the dots. It helps you slow down. It helps you contain your thoughts, and it helps you to generate ideas
Mm.
because it takes a while. Not everyone, it doesn't. From day one, you can't sit down and like meditate for 30 minutes or 45 minutes.
Mm.
It takes a while, but it really centers you. So, and I think that the other thing is, you need to keep a balance with exercising, family. All those things are really important. Your family is very important. You need to be able to find that time to connect with the family because it becomes really lonely very quickly, right?
Mm.
So, it can't be an obsession. And I know I use the word obsession. It needs to be a passion, right?
Mm.
Because if it becomes obsessive, then it becomes, compulsive, and then it becomes a disorder, right? So
Mm.
it needs to be a passion that you're following for the right reasons.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, fascinating. And I meditate. Most mornings I try and commit to 30 minutes is my time most mornings. But I haven't done this week. I think I've missed like 3 days now, and I really start to
You feel
see
that,
things
right?
yeah, things creep in. You're not as centered as you say. You react more. There's not that space between something that happens and you react emotionally rather than just having a space where you can just get centered and access gratitude to remain higher energy. It does change. It massively makes a difference. It's crazy.
No, it is. It is. I mean, there's scientific, even if you're not spiritually doing this, I don't do it for spiritual reasons, but if you do it for, just purely scientific reasons, right? Um,
Mm,
it has a lot of value, and there's a lot of write-ups on that. People can read.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, really, really interesting conversation. I appreciate your insights here, Ankur. Where can people find out more about you online?
Uh, LinkedIn, 0 to 1.ai. My LinkedIn handle, or just reach out to me at Ankur at 0 to 1. That's ZEROTO1 is the numeric dot AI. Yeah, I have a blog on Medium as well, so you can search for me there as well.
Mm. Yeah, well, thanks a lot for that. It was great speaking to you, and yeah, I'll watch the growth of 0 to 1 with great interest.
Oh yeah, looking forward to seeing your podcast reaching heights as well. And please do
Mm.
send me a link so that I can listen to this.
Yeah, Thanks a lot. Thank you.
All right. Bye.